The Federal Reserve is broadly believed to be dropping interest rates by 0.25% again, and then perhaps again and again at their next two meetings. Not long after that, Chairman Powell's term is scheduled to end, and many believe Trump will put in someone that will take interest rates down to near zero to try to grow the U.S. out of its debt crisis. Well, what would that mean for crypto prices? Well, I think you know what it might mean. Now, we have Paul with us today joining so we can look at some of these charts. Also, we will have time to take a few viewer suggestions. In the meantime, let's get the party started. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Have you ever worried about money? What if you learned that using some of your money to work for you just right, so you never had to worry about money again, is possible? And in the crypto space, it makes it more than possible. Now, I grew up poor in life, and my little running joke with my friends is that I grew up too poor for Kool-Aid because we had to buy the cheap and expensive stuff. We couldn't even get name brand Kool-Aid. Not that Kool-Aid is expensive. That's what's so funny. Now, I realized growing up in that the true value of money is that it allows us options in life, and it can decrease that non-worry we carry of how do we meet all these financial obligations when we figure out money. Now, after a few months of being in crypto, when I started 8 years ago, I recognized crypto investment done right had the most amazing, massive potential to allow people to get to a place where they don't have to worry about money again. And after 8 years of being in crypto, I know that crypto can and will change your finances and your life, but only if you do it right. Now, while being in crypto, I learned something very scary. You see, I know people who have been here in crypto longer than me, but they're not even rich yet. They're still stuck where they were when they started. I also learned that 89% of people in crypto don't make meaningful money or flat out lose money. And it's fair to say it's just because they're doing it wrong. Now, there's another 6% of people that make a little bit of money, but just a little. And only 5% of crypto investors make life-changing gains that take them into the lifestyle we all have dreamed about since being kids. Now, haven't we learned in life that if you find what the successful are doing and you copy how they do things, then you start having their results? So I focused 100% of everything on figuring out what those 5% that had massive success did and put it into practice myself. And by 2021, using those principles, I was able to fire my day job, move to the city I wanted, put myself in position to never have to work again if I didn't want to. Now, this channel is where I share what I learned. I share my research on the companies I like and what I like about them. And it is Wednesday, so today is our price analysis day. This is a day where we combine what I've learned with our special guest, Paul, joining us from Definity. Paul has 30 years price analysis experience, analyzing charts, looking at charts, and Wednesday is an extra fun time, looking at the price movements together of what is happening to see what is cheap, what is really cheap, what might be expensive, and what might be about to explode. Note, if you are looking to be part of that 5% to make life-changing gains, join the Patreon link below that will give you access to the Rainmaker private Discord, because surrounding yourself with people who have learned and are learning to do the right things in the right way is exactly how you get good at this. Well, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button, strap in for the show, and help me welcome Paul from Definity. Paul, so good to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We had a little off-screen drama this morning with my broadband going down, and I thought I wouldn't be able to come on the show. So it's actually especially nice to be here, especially when we're on the day that the Fed Reserve will be cutting rates by 25 basis points, maybe by 50 basis points. But this is, again, interesting times, which we'll get into. But it's great to be here and looking forward to getting into the picks.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how Fed monetary policy plays out over the next 6 months, especially with the lead up to Chairman Powell leaving and Trump trying to use lowered interest rates to help the US grow out of its debt crisis. That is particularly good. Being a crypto investor, it should have meaningful impact on the crypto market, driving a lot of money into crypto.
Yeah, well, this is the reason why the macro scene has been bullish for so long. It's not a new thing that Trump is in power, and it's not a new thing that interest rates were on a decline. I mean, with every correction we've been looking for from September, there to be a cut in interest rates and there to be an easing cycle. So this is just what the market has been looking for and why the corrections have been shallow, why after the Trump tariffs and all that fear going all the way back to the beginning of the year, that the market has recovered so quickly and why Bitcoin continues to go higher. Obviously, there's a fragmentation with the altcoins, and not all of them are moving, and some have. And there were some breakouts that didn't happen, and it's caused a bit of FOMO, or not FOMO, but it caused it more like FUD. And there's a few questions flying around, but the macro scene maintained pretty much that the market has been looking for a bullish trend, and that's not over yet. And I don't think it's over in Bitcoin or any of the other markets. And as we go through the charts, that should become clear. But things have been kind of bubbling up today ahead of the cut. The dollar's been easing off. It started from last week. And I'm a proponent of buy the rumor, sell the fact. But I think if the market thought that this was the end of the move, then you might see a reversal. But because we should have a few more cuts in, there's more likely to be a continuation of this trend. But you mentioned 6 months out. 6 months out, I think we're going to see a completely different scenario, and that will be rates possibly going higher. Because when we look at the asset markets, if commodities are moving up in the clip that they're doing, I can't see rates being cut further. And the market, you have to remember, will not like a inflationary policy or a policy that just favors growth at all costs at the detriment of keeping an eye on inflation. So they'll like it for a bit, but it's like it's like having alcohol at a party and becoming more and more intoxicated. There becomes a point where it goes over the edge and it becomes out of control. And that's where it descends into something that it shouldn't be. And so this is the problem. There will be a tipping point, and we have to find that tipping point. But at the moment, rates down, that's been the call. Risk on has been the call, continues to be the call. There's a lot of fear out there. Chris has put a very good comment already saying there's a lot of bears out there. I don't know if he means equity market bears or if he means crypto bears, but either way, this is what we want to see. We want to see a lot of sentiment that points to the downside. We can see actually on the fear and greed index on the from coin market cap, you can see that's at 39. And that's saying that the market's scared pretty much. I mean, not massively scared, but scared, which is out of line with what's actually happening in the markets. Bitcoin has been very volatile this month, but it's certainly not in a bear market, not yet. So that would suggest more upside.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that. And part of the reason I think Trump wants to drive interest rates down so low is refinancing all this US debt, which the US is in a problem in that the debt cycle is so high. And how does he fix it? I do think he's going to try to grow the US out of the problem. And one of the challenges that much of the world saw 4 years ago during the COVID crisis was that all these factories were shut down. So not only were interest rates brought down super low, money was pushed into the system, huge through through these big loans and other things. And yet there was far fewer goods and services available for people to buy. So you had way more money chasing way fewer goods, and inflation went crazy. I know I felt it, like everyone felt it. Lowering interest rates, again, is a risky play. And he seems set on doing that. Now, recently, I remember earlier this year, crypto went in the tubes, as well as the markets went in the tubes, because Trump announced he was going to do this tariff thing. And, everyone believed that was going to be the end of the world. Everything was going to get so expensive. I say everyone, there were a lot of talking heads that believed it was going to drive inflation absolutely crazy and that Trump didn't know what he was doing. And Trump was right on that. Like, it didn't create meaningful additional inflation. Even the Fed chair was wrong on that. He kept interest rates higher because, like, oh no, we're anticipating all this inflation to come because of the tariffs, and it didn't play out that way. So we'll see if he's right on that, because that is a concern. When you lower interest rates down to those levels, there is not only a refinance boom, but it puts so much money available for so cheap that usually far more money comes in the system than additional goods and services that can be put in the system. And so inflation starts to run away. And how will it play out? I don't know. But being in crypto does benefit from that type of environment. So even if inflation goes a little bit crazy in that type of environment, crypto goes a lot crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see how it does play out.
Yeah, there's some differing opinions about how tariffs will play out. I think it's not the sort of thing that you can adjust to immediately. You have to think about businesses, especially with a lot of overseas production line, or a lot of overseas clients where they've got to adjust their prices. It takes a while for it to work its way into the system, and it takes a while for those costs to be passed on, and then it takes a while for it to show up in the data. So things can be happening in the background where it's not immediately obvious, but the market will be adjusting. I think there's a lot of things that are potentially inflationary that we could see further down the pike, and that's but the main one is, if you're just looking at price action and seeing where things are going, you'll see that base metal prices aren't going down. They're going up. They're going up aggressively. And we've seen gold and silver go up aggressively. You might say that's, well, what's the reason for it? Being a technician, I don't really look for the reasons, but I try to work out the mind of the market and work out why things might happen. That, to me, logic and thinking like a businessman rather than thinking like an economist is the best way forward, because standard economic theory is just a load of mumbo jumbo. It just doesn't work, and it's not fit for purpose. But all the theories about models and stuff is just nonsense. And that's why people in authority get in central banks or whatever, they're always behind the curve. So I also think that whatever they're doing, the market is already 2 steps ahead of them anyway, working out what they're going to do or what they'll eventually come round to in terms of their views. So they've already anticipated the rate cuts. They're excited for further rate cuts. It's a momentum play, in the sense that going from rate cuts to rate rises is not going to happen in the next few months, because it would just take a longer time. Yeah, there could be some data that might check that view, that might say, oh, okay, actually, let's reduce the potential for a rate cut because, and maybe that will upset the market. But to actually go to rate rises, which is what they'd be more worried about, will take a bit of time, and therefore I think there's still some runway for this to continue and for things to get out of hand, which they shouldn't really be. If inflation is going to be a problem, which I think it is, they shouldn't really be cutting rates at all. So that's why. And I think also, whether Trump wants to get, I don't know, I don't listen really. I mean, you're saying that he's saying that he wants to get the debt down. Where is that? Where has he said? Has he actually said that?
That was listening to what's his name, Howard Lutnick, talking about it.
Okay.
So it wasn't Trump talking about it directly. It was Howard Lutnick talking about his talks with the president. and how they were going to solve this problem and what the president wanted to see. So it wasn't from Trump directly, but Howard Lutnick is one of his advisors along this realm. So I believe him on it.
Yeah. I mean, look, he wants rates down because he's a businessman. And as a businessman, there's a great lever that you press every time you want the economy to do well. And that's what he wants to do. He's done some great things, but he's also flawed in some ways, in the sense that if some is good, more is better, and he will try to push the markets further and faster than they've ever been pushed before. And in doing that, it will create an enormous amount of prosperity, but at what cost? He wants the dollar to weaken because he knows that the biggest threat is China, and China will reduce their currency in order to be a competitor. And that's why the tariffs have come in. He's trying to protect home markets. The Chinese apparently are making some fantastic products. Like, there was a time when Japan was considered to be a maker of kind of dodgy products, cheap and not very well made. And that was the impression that we got. And that was a long time ago. We're talking about the 80s. Now, Japanese products are considered to be some of the best in the world, the best made. And in fact, in terms of cars, I don't think you can get a better car than a Japanese made car. And it used to be German as well. And even German cars, I don't think are as good as Japanese. But now this is shifting, and China's, working very hard to create some amazing products. There's an iPhone type. There's a phone called the Xiaomi, which is it's a competitor to the iPhone 17 Pro. If you check it out, it's much better than the iPhone 17 Pro. It's a Chinese-made phone. It's an incredible phone. It's way ahead. And that's the same with cars. So using tariffs in order to slow that down is a difficult. It's a response, but the right response is, if you want to take these companies on, you've got to make a better product. And part of the issue is with copyright, with IP protection. It's harder to enforce that in China, but still they are very, very, very focused. And I think that ultimately will worry him. And getting the dollar down is a response to getting the Chinese renminbi weaker, which it is weakening, and making those products better and cheaper as we continue into next year. And they've got less debt as well. So, this is competitive race between the two major powers. So I think that comes into it. There is this big threat breathing down his neck, and that's why also he has to go down this path. But whilst it's all happening, it is positive for the markets, which ultimately shakes out into what we're looking at. And as we saw, there was a strong correction a few weeks back. We're already at all-time highs in the equity markets, and we're not even through the end of October, which we're saying October is always a bit of a dodgy month for the markets, because of September, October is where all the crashes have been. And but as soon as we've shaken this off, we seem to already have shaken it off. It already looks like it's broken out early, and things are looking really positive.
Yeah, let's jump into some of the markets that you're watching, Paul, because equity markets are up, even though crypto is not above all-time highs. That's not the same with stocks.
Yeah, I mean, so look, last 3 weeks we've seen a recovery. So that was the move down, the big panic. Look how quickly it's reversed. Dow Jones 30 already at all-time highs. We've got the Nasdaq all-time highs. We've got the S&P 500 all-time highs. We've got the Russell 2000 ready to break into all-time highs. I'm pretty sure that is. Yeah, that's an all-time high. That's a smaller cap. So, the UK market all-time highs. We've got the DAX index not at all-time highs, but hovering near all-time highs. We look at China breaking out. It's just broken through this big level, and this was the big panic squeeze. Go back to here. That's where they said that deflation was going to continue and the market was going to keep going down. It's gone completely the opposite direction. China's continued to recover. Nobody wanted to invest in China, and it's been one of the best markets. But admittedly, the US market has been the best. Hong Kong as well, that's going up. Japan, all-time highs. Gold, it's hit a major all-time high. It's corrected off, and that's to be expected. But now this is turning around again, or having a correction that may see it consolidate, which it's needed. Silver's the same. Palladium and platinum, the same. They're correcting, but these are upward trends. I don't see these changing anytime soon. Aluminium breaking into new highs. That's against it always shows it against the Indonesian currency, but against the US dollar, you can see that this is against a really important resistance point. That trend is up. Copper, which I think is one of the major market, breaking up again. We could go on, but that's the main thing. We've got the macro scene is still bullish. We've got short-term interest rates. They are falling. 3.72 on the 3-month money. That hasn't turned around. Rates are continuing to go down. 6-month money as well. 2-year money, less so, but still on a downward trajectory. 10-year money, as you'd expect, the curve is slowly starting to flatten out in terms of expectations of it going down, because the rate's going to go down and then they're going to go back up again. So the dollar index, we were looking at potentially a move back to 100, and it seems to be failing. It's not completely out of the woods. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a reaction, short-term reaction, given that we know that rates are going to be cut, and that's no surprise to the market. But there are a few interesting breakout points with, if we look at the renminbi, the Chinese renminbi, that is the dollar is declining against the Chinese currency. So that effect of taking away the competitiveness against the Chinese is working its way down. Against some commodity currencies, the Australian dollar, it corrected and now it's running back up, and the Canadian dollar, that's coming off again. So there's a few things that suggest the dollar is going to weaken further, and that plays into equity squeezing. We could look at individual equities, but let's just put them under the broad category of it's in a bull market. But that's not every single market, of course, every single stock, as one would expect. And so if we look at the cryptocurrencies and what's going on, there's been a lot of kind of fear around what's happened with Bitcoin. It hit a new high. It got everyone excited. Everyone jumped in, and then clear technical signal to buy, and then it got slammed. And then we got a break of the low, and everyone went short, and then it got slammed. So this has been a very difficult period starting from July. So this period here is difficult. Now, it's not the end of a trend. I think the fact that this has been rejected here, to me, is is a more important signal, because the fear and greed is still negative, and the major trend is still up. So I think after a consolidation, there's still potential for a move into what could be all-time highs. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. I mean, I can only play or look at the probabilities that are before me. But with ETH, again, it's still hovering around this high, even though the corrections have been big. If you take a step back and look at the big picture, it's still very near this high, and it's not a bear market as yet. So I'm going for another break higher as we move into November and into December, and then we'll see where we are if and when we get there. But the big picture and looking at these majors, I still think putting all the pieces together, the whole thing's still looking bullish.
Completely agreed. So we've got Bitcoin, we've got ETH. Let's jump over to first altcoin pick. Now, this is ZCASH, and I haven't really been tracking ZCASH. It's a privacy coin. under Gary Gensler, the SEC really went after everything privacy related. Yet, because 2021 came, Gary Gensler was barely in office. ZCASH did quite well in that environment. Recently, it's gone parabolic, and I see everyone talking about it. And I don't like to chase green candles. Like, this is massively, massively up, and there's been really good money made on this, but really good money made on this by those who bought it when it was cheap, and or they bought the breakout on this. What do you think on this, Paul?
Well, I'm not hearing the chatter because I don't listen to other channels, so I don't know, excuse me, how late they are into calling it. But from a technical point of view, I'm definitely late into this move, because if I was following it or catching the momentum, there would have been some better technical signals, especially this $80, which was this major support point where it broke down. I mean, it played off that $80 like nothing else. It's what, 1, 2, 3, this high. And as you know, looking for breakouts is what we do. And this first breakout here was a signal, and then the second breakout. And now it's like within the few weeks, it's run all the way up to this high. But having said that, whether I like the look of it or not, I would say it's probably got to consolidate, even if it's going to continue higher. So I'd like to see it just go sideways for a few weeks, maybe a month or so, and consolidate just below this major high, this all-time high, and then break it. That would allow me to jump in, because if I was to just buy it here, I could put a natural stop, just a percentage stop. But if you look at how much it's moving on a per week basis, a stop for me has got to be relative to the volatility of the market that we're looking at. And if we look at this range and it can move, you know, $50, $100 in a week, where am I going to put my stop? It's a problem. So if it compresses down and volatility drops, but it stays near this high, I would like it. But would I go short it is the other question, and the answer to that is no, absolutely not, because it wouldn't surprise me if it did actually just break through this high and keep going. I mean, there's nothing to stop it. There's no technical signal there to say that we're at the end of it. So if I was forced to take a position, I would still have to buy it, because the trend is up, and that's kind of what the technical rules are all about. But that doesn't mean I'd blindly buy it with no stop. I'd have to have a parachute level. But overall, it's a bullish market. Now, I might temper that with some sentiment, by if everybody's saying it's a buy, but I know most people wouldn't want to buy it because they'd say it's gone too far. So, and I don't think we're at the end of the kind of this crazy period. So, yeah, if I had to do something, it would be a buy, but I'd feel like I'd missed the first part of the move, and I'd be waiting for some form of technical pattern to jump in. So, if I have to make a decision for me, I would say, yeah, it's a buy, but I wouldn't feel that comfortable about it.
Yeah, like this illustrates what I love about crypto, and we're not going to catch every deal, and it's okay. Where people go wrong is they chase, like Paul said, it's late in the buy of this, right? So it broke out to the upside here. It confirmed the breakout when it broke up above 80 here, and then it ran away, and now it's way up. It's no longer 80, it's 300, almost $30 from $80. So a lot of the gains have been made. And some people look at this and they see, well, it's just going to break up and it's just going to keep running. And there is a chance of that. I just don't like the chances very much. And where a lot of people go wrong is look how long it stayed down. It traded sideways like this, and realize the bull market is a lot like a bag of popcorn in the microwave. And things start popping off, and you'll miss some, and that's okay. I like to take strategic positions in companies that I believe in and wait till they pop or they don't, because not every kernel does pop, but most of them do. And I learned it the hard way, because in 2017 I did a lot of chasing where the action was, and it didn't go very well for me. And I saw that people that continued to do that just would get wrecked, as well as not make meaningful money in crypto. And I learned that most of the people, in fact, all the people I know that made millions of dollars in crypto, what they would do is they'd take strategic positions during a time period like this on ones that they like, and they would just wait it out for this kind of thing to happen rather than chasing into one that has broken out like this, because most people don't have the technical expertise to look at this and understand where to put the parachute level, how to still even trade this and not lose. Because people who come in at this and they don't fully know what they're doing, the chances are they might take a pretty big ride to the downside should this not break up here further to the upside. And so this is just a pattern that I've seen where so many people in crypto go quite wrong, is they chase where the action is already instead of positioning where the action is going to be. And they even sell positions that might be well placed, that might be ready to pop in 3 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, who knows, like 3 months, to roll into something that's already high, hoping that it goes higher. And that ends disastrously for pretty much almost every time I've seen it. All right, let's take a look next at Palm. This is a Cardano ecosystem project, and we've had them on the channel before.
Is it Palm Pay or Palm AI or
maybe Palm Economy?
Okay.
Maybe. Let me see where their price is at. That might be them, because they only launched their token 6 months ago. I'm looking at them on, what is this? On DEX Screener. So this is what their chart looks like on DEX Screener.
Yeah, that looks fairly similar. Yeah, it ends up just jumping into.
Yeah, Palm versus ADA would be pretty good on MinSwap. That is the right token, because it does trade against a Cardano pair.
So is there not much data then? Is this all we've got?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. It's attempted to reverse this trend, which is a good initial sign, isn't it? So we've got this. This would be the trend rate. So we got the trend rate down to here, and it broke it once, played across the line, and then has rallied. So step one, it's tried to reverse this trend. That's failed, and now it's kind of halfway between this high and this major support low. So what we could say is there's some very good support down here that needs to hold. But ultimately, for me, this level at 1.1 of a cent, that is my buy point. Because if you look at here, where it consolidated, then broke, that was hit many times, and then it broke through it cleanly. So that's a key support level, which became the sell level on the rally. So whoever was holding it here got out here. If it crosses through there, that's where the dynamics change. What it's doing now is unclear. So this could easily be ready to break into new lows. It's kind of almost 50-50. So I'd have to say it's a wait until it clears up. But we will get some answer within the next couple of weeks. So I'd be happy to return to it. But for me, it wouldn't become a buy until it's broken through this resistance point. And that would then indicate a reversal pattern. It would have done enough in terms of making a base. The only other thing that sticks out on the chart is this very sharp decline on the 10th of October, which probably was in line with other markets moving down hard. That was rejected, and the market came back up. It was bought back up. So if there were stops lurking below the low, the previous low, they've all been taken out. That gives the balance slightly 55% to the upside as opposed to just 50-50. but that's not enough for me to want to jump in yet. But if I had to take a position, if I was being forced to, I would probably have a small buy with a stop below this previous low, but it's very, very balanced. So I think it has to be for me a wait until it becomes clearer.
Yeah. All right. Now, Palm, let's see. Overall, you can see the charts. There's a chance these charts, like Paul said, is trying to turn around and go the other way, but isn't fully clear that it is yet. So we will have to see how this plays out. Palm's token only launched in April this year. I think the timing is going to be pretty good for this bull market. We've had the founders on to talk about this before. I like where it's going. Let's take a look at their market cap. And market cap is 4.5 million, which actually is quite high for the newness of the project and how it's out there. The fully diluted value, 41 million. So it's actually decently high. So there might be a chance that this does come down some more. Given where altcoins are in general, I'm surprised that the market cap is as high as it is still. Now, good projects launch within the Cardano ecosystem, their market cap does tend to stay higher than it probably otherwise would because of how strong the Cardano community is and how loyal they are to Cardano related projects. I think about Cornucopias, and Cornucopias market cap, they now just rebranded to Infinity Rising, but their market cap has outperformed most blockchain games. And I think it's because they launched within the Cardano community, and it's the community effect of the Cardano community. And maybe that's why their market cap is as high as it is now, is the Cardano community. Because I wouldn't expect it to be as high as it is during this bear market. So either Cardano's community is going to buoy it up and continue to buoy it up, or perhaps if this this narrative within the crypto space doesn't run coming up, that Palm might see lower prices in the short term. So for me, it's juicy and it looks like it wants to reverse, but I'm just going to rate it a wait. I do have some of this. I like it. I like the team behind it, but I'm going to rate it a wait.
Yeah, I'd rather be sitting watching a wait than have missed a breakout. That's why I always say let's come back to it even when it's undecided. So I prefer to see something that's not interesting, because then it can become very interesting very quickly. And that's kind of one of them. It's just not clear at this point. But that doesn't mean I don't want to look at it. So please, if there's picks like that, pop them in. So I guess we're on to OMI, are we?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So with OMI, yeah, I think it's pretty much clear what's going on here. The trend is aggressively down, and I've got no justification in buying it at this point. I suppose you could say I don't chase red candles, and but the sometimes when the market gets to a point where it spikes, you get this final clear out. We'll have to see, but this is fairly large in a downward trend. If so, by the end of this week, if this is back up here, that would be interesting. So that could be a sign, but it could be a sign if it does that, and if it stays kind of near the lows, for me, it's definitely a wait. The next hurdle that it needs to recover, and there's almost there's always been this major level up here, but the level before that is now this previous floor. So this floor here, where this rally set off, whilst it's below that, it's for me in a danger area. It needs to get back above that before I can even consider buying it, unless it does something like make a 1 day reversal or 1 week reversal, which is called a spike reversal, or it makes some form of technical pattern. It could just keep going sideways, make a base, and then trade up. So if it does something like that, then I could consider it to be, potentially changing its trend. But for the moment, definitely for me a wait.
Yeah.
And like you've said, actually, I'm not just saying it because of this, but when you look at other markets, some of them just keep going down, and yes, the project's in trouble, and that's where it is. But so I've seen some things like this do this and then just turn around, and then all of a sudden they're flying. So that's the weird thing about crypto. You just never know. So you've just got to keep watching it week to week. And I know last week somebody said, "Oh, Paul was wrong because he said buy." It was a buy, and that's missing the point of. That's why I mentioned it and talked about it for so long. It's like we're looking at a movable market. Things change day to day, let alone week to week. And the way I look at things, it's driven very much by what the signals of the market's telling me. If I think something's going to break out, if I'm waiting for a breakout and it doesn't break out, then you have to change your strategy. The strategy is determined by the markets. You can't just have, the way I look at it, you can't just have one opinion and it just remains static forever. You're constantly getting new information and having to make a new decision. So in that regard, in the same way, if something suddenly changed by the end of this week and it was spiking back up here, I'd have to recognize that and respect it and say, ooh, there's some buying now, and this has changed the dynamics of the market. And the people who bought it down there obviously knew more than I did, and I'd have to respect that. So so that's what price reading is all about, and that's obviously what I do and how I look at things.
Yes, OMI has gotten really cheap, really cheap. So it's gotten to prices that I really didn't think it would ever hit. And that happened to me on projects I liked last bear market too. And it's okay. The way that I trade still accounts for it. Like it's fine that this happens. Now, is it ideal? Well, ideal is me having a magic crystal ball so I can see exactly where the bottom is, and I can keep all my money to the side and liquid till the absolute bottom hits, and then buy everything at the cheapest price possible. But I don't have a magic crystal ball. So without having that, what I do is I look for projects where I really like them based on the research that I do, that I think the narrative will do well in the upcoming bull market. That's a really a use case for the underlying project. That blockchain like really augments. So does blockchain give it lower costs? What's the business use case for it? So in this case, they're bringing digital collectibles and ownership for digital collectibles, verifiable ownership, and verifiable ownership in a marketplace, as well as bringing top level brands like Marvel Comics, Disney, DC, other huge brands, collectibles for digital collectibles along those items. And this is the token associated with it. So I really like the narrative behind Akomi and their app, the VV app. I like the token. I like the token price, and it just keeps getting juicier. And so many people see this as a bad thing. Well, ideal would be we knew it was going to get this cheap, and say we have a magic crystal ball and we know this is the bottom. Then you could just pile in everything at the absolute cheapest and it would be great. We don't have that. So what I've been doing is dollar cost averaging, and it just hit crazy bear market lows where I think it's hugely undervalued. And that's a good and bad thing. It's a bad thing because I didn't know that. So I've been buying on the way down, whereas I could have saved all my money for here had I had a magic crystal ball. No, but I don't have one of those. So I just continue dollar cost averaging. Now, if I had that magic crystal ball, the last bull run would have made me, instead of making me millions, it would have made me hundreds of millions. because I would have had a magic crystal ball and seen the exact bottom and timed exactly the top. That would be incredible, but I don't have one of those. So last bull market, I had to settle for the millions I made rather than hundreds of millions because, well, I didn't have a magic crystal ball, and I still don't. So is it a good price at this? Yes. Does it get a buy for me? Yes, it does. And it may go down even further, and that's a good thing because I think fundamentally the project itself is still strong. I'm not worried about them failing. I mean, maybe there's some information I'm not aware of that they're at greater risk than my assessment says, but they seem pretty strong. They have incoming revenues all the time. I think they've got plenty of ability to raise additional capital should they need to, based on their incoming revenues. So I don't think they're at risk of going out of business. All right. Let's take a look at our next one, which is NTX.
Yeah, so NTX, again, it's crossed through its previous major support, and I just check this here. Yeah, I just want to make sure that was an up-to-date price. So we're looking at weekly chart. So yeah, it's broken through this prior low, so that's putting it in shaky ground technically. The only positive one could say about it is this downward bar here has a certain amount of rejection and it's gone sideways, so it's left a bit of a gap here off the lows. So it's not sitting right on the lows, but it's definitely not done enough for it to be a buy for me. The main downward trend line is still in effect, and that's an accelerated downward trend line. From here, it's not printed any upward trend, like it hasn't made a low and then a higher low to indicate that things have turned around. At a minimum, it needs to recover this point, which is the prior low. That would be the first sign. And this being a weekly chart, unless it has a very, very strong spike, at the minimum, it needs to go sideways for a few weeks before it can break this trend line, but it still needs a bit of work to get through this resistance point. Resistance comes from this point, also comes from here and here. So it's got a lot of work to do before it becomes a buy in my view. But it's not impossible. So let's keep watching it, and we'll put it back on the board in a couple of weeks' time and see where it is. But for me, it's a wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit unclear, like where the bottom is going to be on many of these, and NewNet is no exception. You see, it went to these lows here, and it did incredible following that during the bear market. Like, keep in mind, this is during the bear market. We're talking about January of 2023, February, and this was an AI run, and it went almost to 10 cents, came back down, went to 10 cents here, even though it only shows it at 9 cents. I loaded up on NewNet back here, and I took profits on it. So I've sold almost all my NewNet when it went crazy while everything else was cheap. And so it's not like I don't believe in NewNet. I do. It was just for some reason running counter to everything else. And so I harvested at 10x gains while everything else was super cheap. And then I diversified into other things. So I hold very little NewNet left, even though I like this project. Now it's cheap again, and maybe it's time to scoop it up. Like Paul said, though, I do like to see a little bit more rounding of a bottom, so you kind of have a better idea where the bottom is rather than this type of movement. Is it fundamentally cheap? Yeah, it's fundamentally cheap. Might it get even cheaper than this? I think it will. So for me, it is just a wait. I haven't kept up to date enough to know if, man, I like their fundamentals so much that at this price, it's just too good of a deal to pass up, even though it might continue falling. I don't know enough about what they've been up to this last year to know that. So for me, it has to be a wait. All right, let's jump into some viewer suggestions. Chris jumping in. Thank you, Chris. Chris does the timestamp. So if you're watching this later and there are timestamps in the videos, because Chris does those for us every week. So thank you, Chris, for doing those. We will definitely take a look at HBAR.
Yeah, HBAR headline is it's a wait just because it's still in this range, this compressing range. We had the big move down here where it took the low out, the big spike down that we saw everywhere, and clearly taking stops out for whatever reason. The fact that it was bought back into is also important as well. It's put it back kind of where it should be, but it's not enough for a breakout as yet. If I had to give a balance, I'd say on balance, I would have maybe 60-40 to the upside, just because macro scene and this compression, I think, will eventually resolve in a break higher. But the signal to that would be a break of this line here. And we can also draw in this line, which it's been a very good resistance line on the way down. And it's just getting close to it now. So it's had a go at it, but that's worked pretty well. If we were to shift over to a daily chart, see it's respected that line on quite a few occasions. And this little move here is it's small, but it's interesting. It's interesting in the way that it's trying to get close to it. And it would look very, very different if it had broken through it, especially this area here, but especially this line here. It's not that far away. So whilst it's still in the center of this range, which kind of puts it in a neutral place, underlying there might be something more interesting happening. But again, it's still a contingent if it breaks this line, and if it breaks this line, and then if it starts to go for this high, those are the steps that make it even more interesting. But I wouldn't want to see it up here next week and say, oh yeah, I've missed it. This is the perfect time to be watching this closely to see how it's reacting against this very clear resistance line, and whether it gets into this zone. Through here, for me, it would be, I would want to buy it. I would put some stops in, some logical stops below, 19 cents would make sense to me. Would I be tempted to buy it here? No, not really. Could be, but I would try and find something else. If I was forced to take a position, and I had to take it one way or the other, it would be a buy rather than a sell. But that just forces me to take a view on it rather than, naturally wanting to. But there's a lot to see there. There's a lot that's actually happening, even though it's still stuck in this effective range. If you move it into like a monthly chart, it's pretty much range bound. There's not that much data, but yeah, if we go into the weekly chart, I guess that shows it. But look, this is another example of where the market's heading for lows, looking terrible, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just turn around. So we've got to be quick with these things. We've got to keep our eyes open, especially in this market environment.
Yeah. So Hedera is interesting. It's one of the ISO coins, and it's hard to tell what's going on with Hedera because they don't have a public chain that everyone is building on. They're what it would be called. It's essentially a permission blockchain rather than a permissionless blockchain. And so they're designed for enterprise blockchain. And so other than announcements, it's hard to know what is going on with HBAR. It's been harder to track. Now, a lot of this momentum here was when Trump won the presidency and all the ISO coins went crazy. So we saw a big pump from Hedera being 4 cents, and it went all the way to 30 cents, then later up to 34 cents. And now it's retraced some of those gains. And I just think it's trading sideways and building some momentum before it swings to the upside. Now, it's solidly in the blue chip category. I don't really do blue chips. I'm in the riskier stuff. I think there's a case to be made that the ISO coins as blue chips might still have really strong upside potential, even though they've experienced some of their gains. And it may play out that way. I think that some people are suggesting that might even be right. So we'll see how it does play out. Yeah, I'm conflicted on this because, like, if I were buying blue chips at this price, I would probably pick some up. My favorite blue chip is XRP, and XRP went to these highs of 330, and then it's come back some. It's sitting a little bit higher than I would prefer. I liked it when it came back down to $2. That was a really juicy price, but now it's trading at 260. It's in my opinion, a pretty good deal, just not an amazing deal like it was like way back here when it was trading between 30 to 60 cents. So 260, not bad. So if I were buying blue chips, probably I would pick up a little bit of HBAR as an ISO coin. And for that reason that, compared to XRP's market cap, which is what, 157 billion, Hedera is only at 8.43 billion. Overall, that isn't part of my strategy this time. I do own a little bit of Cardano, a little bit of XRP. And other than that, I'm in much riskier projects in this. Let's jump over to the super chat that's come in. Mike Jones, thank you for the super chat. Can we do DevStream Corp? The stock DEVS, it's near 52-week lows.
I think that might tell you something about what I might say about it. Anything that's, I would say, if you want my opinion, save your $25. If it's near a low, I'm not going to be saying anything positive about it. And the fact that it is so close to this low, there's only one line of defense, and that is its previous support. The fact that it's leaning on that and it's almost accelerating into it is not a good sign, I have to say. So for me, definitely a wait. Will it bounce from here? I don't know. I just don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable buying it. If it bounces, then okay. Next step is, how far does it bounce? Has it made any other technical patterns? This has been fairly consistent in going down. So I if I had to say which way would it go, I would be concerned that it's going to break that level and it's just keep going down, even if it's just clear out stops. So definitely a wait from me. Yeah, happy to look at it again without 25. Well, it's your super chat, I guess, but it being a stock, it's not really something that I would look at on this show. It's more crypto, but from a technical point of view, it's I don't mind looking either, whether it's, as you've seen, commodities, bonds, stocks, whatever it is. It's just a technical view, and the acceleration to the downside has been increasing. It had a consolidation here. All these bars are red. That's not looking good. That's all I can say at this point.
Yeah. I don't own any DevStream itself. I do own a little bit of shares of DevV, the company behind it. DevStream, I think, is owned by DevV, and I think it was a way that they have a publicly traded company. They did some kind of, I can't say I fully understand it. So they essentially buy a company that's already traded on the NASDAQ, and so when they do that, like, the chart gets all jumbled. So I don't know exactly what happened here, but essentially, since they've been running it, I think this is where the chart is. So it is right along those lows, and that's interesting to me. Devi itself, I talked with someone advising the team a lot this last week, and I think they've got some good things going for them, some really good things going for them that most of the market is not aware of. I would rate this a buy. Now, we're right near that floor. It could break to the downside. I think fundamentally there's some stronger things that I think it doesn't, but we'll see. If it does, it could get even more attractive. I'm going to rate it a buy. I like buying cheap. I don't mind buying near the bottom, even if it ends up not being the bottom. And that's why I just like buying really cheap, and it is really cheap. Contrast this, much of the stock market has been going up and this has gotten cheaper. But it's one of the challenges with Debbie and is that their awareness is low versus what their product can do. So I think if they catch up and they get some awareness of the fundamental strength of the product, that they do incredible coming out. That's why I like Debbie itself and am so heavily invested in it. All right, let's jump over to, I think we got a few more suggestions. Thank you for the super chat. Let's jump to our next one. We have XRP, which we looked at a little bit. We didn't have Paul look at the chart. XRP and Flare. Let's take a look and see what those are looking like.
Yeah. XRP, I think this is still looking interesting. This is still playing. Oh, I've got it on the market cap. Hang on. Let's try that one. So, yeah, it hasn't got the full data, but it's still playing near the high. So if we look at the big picture chart, it's consolidating. We had this first breakout here where I got excited. I was like, yeah, off we go. It was a bull trap, got caught, and then had to bail out and regroup. But it looks like it's coming back for another attempt. And the broader trend is still bullish. So whilst it might not go this week or next week, it might take a bit longer. I still think that at some point this is going to break higher. So I would say for me, it's a buy. But I fully accept it may get tied up longer. Where I would be concerned is if it starts playing down below $2 or approaching this spike low point. That spike has taken out a lot of positions, as we know, and I don't want to see it attempt to get anywhere near there, because if it does, and if it moves there slowly, it'd be more like a trend ending signal for me. But I think this is an anomaly given how some of the other markets have reacted. They've spiked down, everyone's bailed out, and then look at the equity markets, new highs. Things like this can happen to shake out positions, and then the trend continues up. And I think we're in that in between period where there's a lot of uncertainty, but I still think that there's more momentum coming to the upside for all the macro reasons that I've talked about. So I'm still willing to give this or stay with the buy side, given that it should be pushing these things higher towards this 350. If we take a similar market, and we're going to look at Filecoin in a minute, but if we look at Stellar, which is also a similar sort of chart, it's done something. If we take this step back, which is what I like to see more, we've got this big consolidation, and what we're seeing short term is what it's done here. But if you look at the big picture, it's still within this bigger consolidation, and this is the line it needs to break. If this can break higher, I think XRP, I think they'll both move together, and I still like the look of this chart and still rate its chances of having a go. Now, that all goes straight out the window if we break below. I would say that the similar low here is 24 cents and or this low here. Now, that would mean that it'd have to be supported by this lower line. So we'd have to draw that in and see if it stops there, if it was, again, just another short-term correction. But if sentiment is right, it shouldn't come back down. It should, as XRP, should just break higher after a consolidation. So again, we're going to have to wait a bit, because I don't think it's going to happen this week. But definitely keep looking at it. It's an important market.
Yeah, I like XRP a lot, and I agree with you that, well, it is going to break to the upside. I think I've got Hedera up there. What's interesting is we're 3 months or so away, probably, from Congress passing the Genius Act, and then institutions can go even more full steam ahead with what they're doing. I think the public gets more awareness too. I think we're set up so strong for an absolute crypto boom, and it's okay that like stocks have recovered. And meaningfully, crypto hasn't, not yet, and that not yet is okay with me. I think next year is really big for crypto. In fact, I believe the next 2 months is big for crypto. I think Bitcoin breaks to new highs. I think it continues its run up and probably tops out next year. And I think some of the momentum starts transferring further to altcoins as well in the coming 2 months. XRP's market cap, I'm fascinated to see where it can go. It's a new, I like patterns that I can more easily understand. And I don't know where XRP can go. I know XRP at 30 to 50 cents was such an amazingly underpriced deal that, in my opinion, had potential to do 100x from there. At 260, it's realized, say, 5 to 8x of the gains. So it might do 20 to 30x from here, whereas before it had 100x potential. Like, where's it going to go from here? I don't know. Can it still do 100x from here? I don't know that it can, but it also is much more safe than a lot of the riskier stuff that has 100x potential. So I like some things about it. I'm not heavy on XRP. I wish I had gone in bigger with XRP. One of the reasons I created the community that I created was back in 2018, 2019, and 2020. I realized that though I was starting to understand the principles, like really wrapping my mind around the principles of what the 5% that were uber successful in crypto did, that I couldn't see and understand all the amazing deals just by myself. And my thesis was that if I create a community of people that understand these things, I'm going to become aware of even more deals than I would all by myself. And that would benefit not only me, but the community. And we've created exactly that. The reason I'm so aware of what's going on with XRP is one of our Discord members is number one, he's got 30 years background in payments and payment services at the executive and high executive level. And so he stays extremely up to date on what's going on with the ISO coins and has helped informed our private community keep up to date and put XRP on my radar, whereas it probably would not have. In fact, it definitely would not have been, as well as the other ISO coins. And a lot of our Discord members bought a lot of XRP back when it was really cheap here, because I gave him the microphone to have some of our Friday chats to make the case, because I felt like the case he was making was extremely solid. So a lot of our private Discord members loaded up on XRP, even though it wasn't one that I personally had done all the research on. It was even better than that. One of our community members had done extensive research in a background that he knew. And so our community didn't miss this deal when it was uber cheap there. It was still somewhat cheap here, because I think it's going to go a lot higher. Just not as good of a deal, but good enough for some people with their metrics, probably. So I'd rate it a buy. It's just not as juicy as a buy as before. And I am not, if I had 20,000, 30,000 coming in from other income sources per month, would I be buying more XRP? I would at this price. But I've got all my cash flow already tied up in positions. I'm not going to take one position, sell it to buy XRP at this price. But if I had amazing cash flow coming in, I would be buying more at this price. So I'm going to rate it a buy. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? We've got AGIX. Let's take a look at that.
Okay, there was okay.
We did have Flare on there, and Flare I would rate a buy for the same reason as XRP. They're kind of like, you could oversimplify it and say they're bringing smart contract viability to the XRP ecosystem. So when you're trading Flare, you're kind of trading an extension of the XRP ecosystem at a much, much lower valuation. So I think as XRP does well, Flare does even more well. And I think Flare is a buy.
Okay, I thought that was Filecoin, so I misread it anyway. So AGIX, I'm not sure if we've looked. Maybe we've looked at this before.
Quite a while.
Yeah. Okay, attempting to reverse from here was interesting, but we've moved on a long way since then. There's been no extension. There was no extension here, and if you look at all the highs, they've been getting lower and lower, and it's broken the previous low. So I can't justify buying this at all from a technical point of view. In fact, it probably will go lower, I would say, from here, because not only is it spiked down, it's also now coming back to retest that spike low. So it makes this look like less of an anomaly and more of a general trend direction. So naturally, there will be things that will change that dynamic, and that's the line for me from a trend point of view. This is the horizontal support that it definitely needs to be above. It's in a danger zone down here. This is more neutral, and this starts to put it into the buy category. So you can see there's a good few steps it needs to take before, for me, it becomes a buy. So definitely a wait from my side.
Yeah. So I've got a fun history with Singularity because it did make me some money in the bull run. Let's see, Paul, it's a wait. All right. So a little bit of story time with J-Rain. So way back here, I was involved in buying Singularity net, and it's an AI play. And what I liked about it is one of the founders behind it was one of the principal key players of AI in general. And so compared to a lot of AI crypto projects, it actually had one of the top AI people involved in it. So I like that kind of narrative. And it did decent during the bull run. So if you were buying it at 2 cents, it topped out at about, well, here about 50 cents, went a little bit higher in the second leg of the 2021 run. And it's like, okay, I was happy with the performance. It didn't perform as well as I hoped it would. And it came back down and I took profits out. Well, AI became a really big narrative back here in 2024. And the AI narrative went crazy. So it pumped all the way to $1.30 during the bear market. But remember, we were in a bear market. It's not the bull market. And so when you get a pump during the bear market, money is usually just transferring between people within the crypto space. So people were selling other things and rolling it into all the AI plays. And they thought the AI narrative would run for forever. And that's just not how it plays out. So all this momentum swung into AI and now it's swung back out. Now, is AI a great narrative in the crypto space? Yes. So I think this is a really good buy. But like Paul said, it may not be the bottom. It's, in my opinion, a good buy, but it might get even cheaper. So we'll see. I mean, you can see the bottom here is during the bear market was 2.7 cents. So we're still a little ways away from that. Maybe it comes back and retests like bear market lows, which would still be a 75% decrease from where things are today. So it would just be a smaller buy for me, hoping that it comes down even cheaper. Yes. Carbon credits are on the way out. Yes. Part of DevStream's business had to do with putting carbon credits on chain. The Biden administration's push for carbon credits was really, really big. I don't think carbon credits are gone. They're just not the focus of this administration at all. Also, like, people around the world still believe in clean air, clean energy. I think the carbon credits got a little bit extreme. Are still marketplaces for it, which I think is what DevStream does, and maybe that's part of the reason why their price is down where it is. I remember, so I don't love this idea that if we just give environmental organizations trillions of dollars, they're somehow going to save the planet. I do like the idea of the market lining up incentives right to keep a clean world. And I felt like DevStream and where Debbie was going with that was good, in that they were introducing a way to do verifiable, what are called carbon credits, towards the incentives that things want to align. For example, in the ocean off of the Philippines and some of the islands there are huge amounts of trash just floating in the ocean because they just throw garbage into the rivers that ends up in the ocean. And there's just huge amounts of trash. Well, nobody has an incentive to clean that up directly. But if you get corporations to put aside money towards a better cause, which like cleaning the oceans, then you got to have some way to monetize that, where somebody can then get paid to go clean those up in a verifiable way. That's what DevStream was doing. I really like that. This doesn't just blindly give environmental organizations billions of dollars in unaccountable money. This actually just ties verifiability to doing the things that I think many of the first world countries would like to see done. So I thought their solution was amazing. And I agree, the carbon credit narrative will come back. They just have to, they're solving a very real problem in a very good way. And sometimes during the Biden administration, I just felt like money was thrown at the problem to unaccountable organizations. And I think a lot of that's getting cleaned up and hopefully just going to organizations that are actually doing things in a verifiable and sustainable way. All right, DevStream has 3 employees. They are fairly light and lean at this point, in that they don't need huge employees lining this stuff up. So I can't remember the person. I've been on some calls with the person that's leading DevStream, and he's a very well-respected, amazing guy. So we'll see how this plays out. All right. I think that's all our picks. Well, it's been another amazing Wednesday. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you. And thanks for all the picks, and see you next week.
All right. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
All right. So we are almost into November. I do think November and December are going to be quite good for crypto. I think the bigger run happens next year. I think interest rates continuing to come down is going to push more money into risk on assets. We're seeing that with gold and silver prices. We're seeing the stock market at all-time highs. Crypto has been a little bit delayed, and but like Paul often says, sometimes it's like pulling a brick with a rubber band. You pull and pull and pull, and that brick doesn't move, and then suddenly it moves quite a bit. That's often how crypto plays out. So I think November, December are going to be strong. I think next year is going to be amazing. It's the time period that I've been waiting for. And when you're buying during the bear market, like the kind of strategy that I employ takes a lot of patience, and that patience does wash out a lot of people, and they miss out on the massive gains that can go to those that are patient, because either they'll panic out of their good long-term position that haven't popped yet, and they'll chase something that's already running like ZCASH, which in my opinion is a mistake, or they just wash out entirely and they get out of crypto during this type of bear market, and they don't have the patience to make this work. And that's all right. The reason why there's such amazing gains to be had is that so few people will have the patience and the tenacity to do the right things over the bear market and wait for it to play out. And those who do, well, the gains go to them. So congratulations. I think you're in the right place and you're in at a great time. I think this coming year is going to go so well for you. Most don't even realize how well it's going to go for you. We'll see you all soon. Enjoy this wrap. We'll see you in a private community. We'll see you on Friday. And the rest of you, we will see you next Tuesday.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic to dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.